Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Lunch Club. I am Abby Criswell. I'm part of the 2020 Lead Abroad staff, and this is our first session of TLC of the summer. The purpose of these sessions are going to be so that everyone, your fellow peers, your staff, everyone can have a safe space to reflect on and compare what we're going through while we're studying abroad, our experiences abroad, compare tips and tricks, that sort of thing. So our first session of the summer is going to be something that's a major value of Lead Abroad, which is breaking through boundaries. So first of all, can somebody tell me what a good example of a physical boundary is? Yeah, awesome. So a good example of physical boundary would be like a wall, an ocean, a mountain, even a stop sign. What about some non-physical boundaries, like an abstract boundary? Can you give me an example of that? Good job, yeah. So an abstract boundary would be like being fearful, something unknown. It would be a communication barrier, a language barrier, any sort of thing like that. So what role do these boundaries play? Yes, exactly, yeah. So the boundaries, or the role of a boundary, what role does boundaries play? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so boundaries are important because they provide safety nets. They can be good boundaries, bad boundaries, just things that keep you, deter something from becoming something else. So for example, this picture is a mountain road. You can see the guardrails, you can see the rubber strips, the rumble strips. You can see the guardrails, you can see the rumble strips. And the purpose of this road and these boundaries is to keep you from falling off. I'm sure if anybody has driven down a mountain road that they, especially like in the dark or the rain, or if you look down at your radio or something, you're going to be kind of fearful that you're gonna, fall off the mountain. So these things are in place to keep you from doing that. So in a similar sense, we have boundaries in place in our program. Like we have a set of rules, and they're not to restrain you from having fun or keep you from experiencing things to the fullest. They're actually, to keep you from getting hurt, from getting arrested, that kind of thing, just to keep you safe abroad in general. So this picture is some kind of businessman in a corporate setting, and he looks like he's trying to get to success, but he's struggling, and the reason is because of his comfort zone. So similarly, you're going to experience boundaries abroad that are going to require you to get past your comfort zone. That can mean, the friends you came with, your comfort zone is social media, it's always having your phone on you, that kind of thing. There are lots of different boundaries that are personal that you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone during this program to be successful. So these are some boundaries to break through. First of all, we have obstacles, which we talked about earlier. Obstacles can be abstract, they can be physical, lots of different types of obstacles. And then stereotypes, that's a big boundary. So stereotyping each other, stereotyping the new culture that you're going to be in, their stereotypes of you, that kind of thing. Then there's self-imposed boundaries, so that's like the comfort zone that we talk about, and being with your friends and social media and that kind of thing. And then lastly, it's resources. So time, energy, money, those are all boundaries that you're going to have to push through. So first we have obstacles. There are so many obstacles that you're going to face that you weren't expecting, that you can't prepare for when you're studying abroad. And what we're going to continue to talk about is how you can push past those and have the skill set to take beyond study abroad with overcoming obstacles that show up that you're not familiar with and that you need to get past. So in this picture, this girl looks like she has lost her baggage, or her airline has lost her baggage, and obviously that's no fun, but it's unavoidable. It's not like she could have done anything about it. It's not her fault. Things like this situation happen all the time abroad, and it's not like there's not a solution to it. It's not like you can't learn something from it. For example, when I was abroad in London, I needed to fly back from London to Paris, and we didn't have a good grasp on time and didn't realize that there's just a lot of traffic all the time in London, and we took an Uber to the airport, but the Uber was, stuck in traffic, and we got there way too late, and even though we'd spent all this money on this flight back, they wouldn't let us on because we were too late. So we had to deal with that obstacle of it being the last flight of the night back to Paris, and basically not being able to afford a hotel to stay in, so we had to sleep in the London Heathrow airport, which is not something that you expect to do or intend to do. But we made the best out of it, and it's something that I'll remember forever. And so when I take that experience in the airport and having to, sleep or just hang out all night in the airport, I remember that in future situations when I'm traveling, and it's like I've really learned. It's kind of a self-imposed, I broke through the boundary of being fearful about travel, and it's just helped me feel like I can, take on more obstacles than I originally would have been able to. So assumptions about other cultures and their assumptions about us. So you can think among yourselves, talk among yourselves about some assumptions you have about this culture that you're going into, and just things like, I'm sure you've done your research since then, but just not knowing anything about this culture, what are some assumptions that Americans have about this place? All right, yeah, good job. So if someone wants to share those assumptions, let me know. That was stupid. Okay, so if everybody wants to talk among each other about assumptions that you have about this culture, I'm sure you've done some research and talked to a lot of people before coming here, but just before you knew anything about this country and their people, what are some assumptions that Americans have about this culture? So talk among yourselves for a minute. All right, awesome. So does anyone want to share an assumption that they've had? Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so another assumption that people have in this program is about each other, because you're coming into this new culture with a group of people that you don't know, at least, most of the people that you're with, and that can be scary. It's scary because you're going to be spending a lot of time with these people. You may be living with people, rooming with people that you don't know. You may be hanging out with someone from your rival college, something like that. But all in all, those are assumptions that you're going to have to tackle, boundaries that you're going to have to push past. And then the third thing is assumptions about you that this culture may be having. So a lot of, European countries have the assumption about Americans that we're like loud, annoying, obese, things like that aren't always true, but that's just the way that they perceive us, in the same way that we sometimes perceive stereotypes about them. So for example, I was in an exchange program in France, and I took classes with people from South Korea, Italy, Russia, Canada, Australia, all kinds of places, and a lot of them had never met an American before, or never really talked to an American before, and they were not shy about their assumptions, especially the people who I met who are my age, and kind of surprised that they met me and I wasn't fitting in with all of these stereotypes that they had about Americans. And it's just something to keep in mind, that when you're abroad, you might run into people who won't meet another American besides you. They may have never met an American, and you're kind of reinforcing or battling those stereotypes that they have when you meet them, whether or not you want to be in that situation. A lot of times you're going to end up in that situation. So it's important to remember that, and to always be open-minded with people, and be very aware that these assumptions exist, but that they can be easily tackled if you just put yourself out there. So, self-preservation. What are you afraid of losing? What are you trying to hide? What are you trying to prove, and to whom? These are important barriers because they are self-barriers, personal barriers that you're gonna have to get past. And they're not things that you can change by, doing something differently outwardly. It's something that you guys are going to have to break out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to really self-reflect on what's going on and what's holding you back. Why did you come here? Why did you decide to leave your life behind for a month, for a few weeks, and experience something new? And the root reason why is something that you should always keep in mind when you're thinking about self-preservation and self-reflection, because that's your challenge that you need to have in the back of your head at all times. Okay, so limited resources, last but not least. Can someone give me an example of some limited resources? Yes, time. Energy, exactly. Money, perfect. So money. Everybody has obviously a different amount of money. That's a limited resource that's not universal to everybody, but you guys are all college students, so you're at least on a budget, especially here, and you don't have full-time jobs, so it's not like money is this insane unlimited resource. But time and energy are always limited resources, and you don't realize it, especially if you've never been on a study abroad. If this is your first time taking classes in a foreign country, you really have to balance your time, and you'll exhaust yourself more than you will in America, in the sense that you're going to go to class and you might go home and take a nap, or watch TV or whatever if you were in America. But abroad, you're going to want to experience things when you're not studying, when you're not in class, and you're going to have those time management skills and really focus on where your energy and time should go. Because if you're not intentional about that, you'll exhaust yourself and you'll waste, this resource of energy, or waste this resource of time, particularly with taking classes and studying. So with taking classes, it's really important for you to be aware and to plan out your class. Maybe talk to your professor this week, write down a plan for yourself, especially if that's something that you're concerned about, because you don't want a couple weeks from now to be like, oh shoot, I haven't been studying, I haven't been paying attention in class, I haven't been using my time right, and now I have all this work to do when I just want to experience things and I just want to study. And because as for taking classes, something you might want to focus on now is sitting down, making yourself a plan, talking to your professor, figuring out, especially if that's something that you're concerned about, how you're going to be successful throughout this course and how you can really manage your time so that you don't have to, a few weeks now, take away from experiences that you want to have with all these new people you're meeting in this country, because you have to study. So just be wise, whether that's being more intentional when you're in class, paying, better attention so that you understand the material when your teacher is teaching you it, and then not having to study it as much outside of class. Whatever works for you, but that's something that you should be intentional about. So, defining your obstacles. I believe that a problem is not a problem if there is no solution. Even if that means that you have to research the solution, you have to get advice to make a solution. So a regrettable situation and a regrettable situation and an unavoidable conflict. Those are two things that are not really problems. A regrettable situation is something that is out of your control. Maybe there's no closure, there's no healing from it, but it's not a problem because there's not a solution. As with an unavoidable conflict, you can't necessarily be in two places at the same time. I mean, that would be, violating laws of physics. So if you have to be in class and your friends all want to go on some adventure to some fountain, go to a restaurant, you have to be in class. That's an unavoidable conflict. It's not a problem. So there's no solution. You have to be in class. With that being said, you have to remember what you're using your limited resources, your time and energy on, because if you're focusing your time and energy on something that's not really a problem, it's wasting your resources. You should be focusing your time and energy on something that is going to have a solution. So, where do we focus our energy? So, I recommend not being the person to dwell and drag on things that are using your time and energy in a way that's not going to solve anything. And everybody knows there's people like that. Even if you've been the person like that, you just need to recognize it and recognize what is out of your control and what you can't change, and focus your energy, your time, your money, and your comfort zone and your boundaries intentionally. Okay, so travel is practice. Kind of reiterating what we've already said, but take this program and this experience abroad as practice for later in life. And when we say breaking through boundaries is so important, it's not just important that you get out of your comfort zone and that you find success in being uncomfortable in this program, but that's something that if you practice that now, you're going to use all the time in your life, and it's just going to become part of who you are. And it's really important to remember that you are tougher than you think. You really are. You don't go into, skydiving thinking that you're totally capable of feeling completely free and jumping and trusting someone else that they've got their safety in your hands. But once you do it, you're like, holy cow, the adrenaline is there and I am tough. So just something to keep in mind. Courtney Rodebaugh, one of UGA's Lead Abroad founders, was invited to speak at the UGA Business School, and one of the key themes of her speech was grit. So she said this quote, "The great thing about grit is that it is a muscle that can be strengthened. Outsource your obstacles." So she said this, "The great thing about grit is that it's a muscle that can be strengthened. Don't outsource your obstacles, not to your parents, a friend, or to your future self by ignoring the problem. Each challenge prepares you for the next and makes you stronger." And that's grit. Breaking their boundaries will look different for everybody in this program, but grit is something that you should always remember and be intentional about. To end this, your homework is to think what grit means to you and think about the obstacles that you are fearful about going into this program. Think about those and how you can overcome them, and be intentional this week so that when we come back for the next Tuesday Lunch Club, we can talk about it and reflect on it.